Hi. Welcome to what I read in July. July was a great month for reading. I had a lot of fun reading this month. Let's not hesitate and let's get right into what I read. First up, courtesy of the Fraser Valley Regional Library, I read The Adult by Bronwyn Fisher. This is a Canadian author, which is great. Cool. And this book follows a young, 18-year-old girl who moves from her small town with her parents to go to university for the first time. It's awkward for her there, as it is for so many, but she meets an older woman.
What the Sigma?
Who she starts a little relationship with. Now, she doesn't really know much about this older woman. We don't know much about this older woman. And that all kind of unfolds as the novel progresses. I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. It was relatively suspenseful. It didn't give us too much. It didn't give us more than we needed, but it was also really predictable, which isn't always a bad thing, as I've talked about before, but I don't know. It didn't make for the most rewarding climax in this book. It's a sort of a coming-of-age novel of a young, questioning woman who's working through her sexuality, her identity. Everything is kind of all over the place for her, and she finds comfort where she can. I liked it. It was worth a read. I would recommend it. And I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book I read is Gender Fucking: The Pleasures and Politics of Living in a Gendered Body by Florence Ashley. This was a lot of fun to read. I really enjoyed my time reading this. I posted a couple of excerpts on my Instagram story. Is Frankenstein's monster conforming to society for not being a mound of rotting flesh? I will always be sewn together, flesh-bound to be as grotesque as I am sublime, the essence of my humanity expressed in the messiness of my body. I love it. This is a really, really unique book. It features critical essays, erotica, and stitched up memories. It uses erotica in a really great, really unique, really sort of boundary pushing way, in that it's sort of like academic erotica, which is amazing. I think there's a gaping hole in academia for erotica. Although I don't know much about academia, but I know that there's not enough of that. So really cool, really cool. I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I read Bluets by Maggie Nelson. I think it was last month or the month before. I read The Argonauts, also by Maggie Nelson, and adored it. It was an easy 5 stars. Bluets, I've heard, is better, but also what is better when it comes to writing and literature. I really enjoyed reading this. It was a really, really fascinating, really penetrative read. I didn't personally enjoy it as much as The Argonauts, but I still got a lot out of it. I will say, I don't know if I'm smart enough to really appreciate this for all it is. I gave this 4 stars as well. Next up, I read Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. Check for pronunciation. It's pronounced Kobabe, so win some, you lose some, I guess. So Maya uses air pronouns, and this book was really good. It was really good. It's the second graphic novel I've read, which is a puny number. The first being Funhouse by Alison Bechdel, and I really enjoyed this. It talked about our experience sort of discovering transness and queerness and our asexuality. It was really, really beautifully illustrated, I'll say that much. I feel like it ended a bit abruptly, but I also recognize that it's not the end of their story. Like, hopefully we hear more from M in the future, because it was a really great, really fun, and I think a really perfect book for teens and youth who are having similar feelings of, disconnection within themselves and with people and culture around them. And I think this could be a really amazing outlet for a lot of people, could save lives. So yeah, for me, it wasn't that's just not the place I'm at in my life, but I really respect it as a graphic novel, so I gave it 3.5 stars. Next up, I read a classic, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is my third Cormac McCarthy book after Child of God and No Country for Old Men, and this is right up there with No Country for Old Men as my favorite. So brilliantly written. Wow. To keep a reader so engaged over, 260 odd pages of this barren, post-apocalyptic landscape that is The Road is so impressive. It's a devastating novel. It perfectly weaves in, the past with the present. I'm a big fan of McCarthy's writing, big fan of this book. This is a landmark in how to properly do post-apocalyptic writing, because it doesn't delve too much into why the world and the landscape is the way it is, because that's irrelevant now. But it captures the loneliness and the lack of hope. It's really sad, but it's glorious. It's brilliant. I gave it 4.5 stars. Next up, I read Dear Dolly, Collected Wisdom by Dolly Alderton. Dolly Alderton was a columnist she sent people's problems, and she gives them advice. An advice columnist. This was a fun book. It was a good book. There was fun advice. There was a couple of really funny moments. I really liked her engaging style, and she was super empathetic, which I really appreciated. In giving advice, it can be really easy to totally surrender yourself to the person's point of view who's asking advice, but she does a really admirable job at considering the scope of some of these problems she's sent, empathizing with people who are, barely talked about in the situations. So I'll give it 4 stars. The last book I read in July was Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking. Now, this is my first Joan Didion read. I have a few other of her titles. I have Democracy, I have Play It As It Lays, and I have Slouching Towards Bethlehem. And now I have The Year of Magical Thinking. This was devastating. It follows Joan Didion. So I'm going to hell for doing that. But just it follows Joan Didion. After the passing of her husband, John Gregory Dunn, over the course of the year following his death. And in that year, a lot and very little happens. She doesn't have much time to grieve and to mourn, as her daughter Quintana was going through a myriad of health issues as well at, the same time as John Dunn passed, and as she was grieving and mourning. But this is just a beautifully written examination of loss. I cried at multiple points of this. Really devastating, like I'm at a loss for words. There's one quote that really resonated with me, that really stuck with me, that I wrote down, but I don't... Sorry to do so much bed jumping, but the quote is from Philippe Aries, and it goes, "A single person is missing for you, and the whole world is empty." Like, come on. What am I supposed to say about this book? Like, what am I supposed to critique? What am I supposed to examine? This is a book that is meant to be felt. I think this is a deeply, deeply personal book for Joan Didion, but also for everyone that reads it. Most people have gone through loss in their life. Everyone will go through loss in their life. And I think this is as close as it gets to essential reading. 5 stars, pretty resoundingly. That's everything I read in July. Sorry to end it on such a brutal note, but that's how I ended my reading this month. I'm really excited for August. It is Women in Translation Month, and I will have a video out for that as well. Yeah, happy reading. Thank you for watching. Bye.